God's not in the relationship, it's not a relationship.
Wow.
And I heard a prayer recently in one of the 12-step rooms, and this is about every relationship, not just sexual and intimate, but somebody said, "Dear God, please only bring me relationships where you can be first and I can be me."
Oh, man, that's good. Say that one more time so I can...
Dear God, please only bring me relationships where you can be first and I can be me.
Man, that gives me the chills.
I know, isn't that
Imagine
beautiful?
every relationship in your life like
Right?
that. Friends, family, intimate relationships.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful life.
Isn't it?
With every relationship like that. Because then you're not feeling judged, or you don't have to people please. You don't have to impress. Obviously you got to create boundaries and you have to communicate and you have to, stand up for yourself, but you don't have to worry about what happens when God is at the center.
Yeah.
God is going to have your back no matter what.
And their back.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, to know that they also have their own higher power.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? I mean, I got super high off of becoming other people's higher power as much as I got super high off making somebody my higher power.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh, let me be the thing you worship. Right? Like that's a rush.
Big rush.
Right?
Until you crash.
Until you get depedestalized. And then you don't even want to be in the room when that happens. I mean,
man.
like that's such a terrible crash for everybody, the terrible disappointment of that. Yeah. Like I say this to my sponsees a lot, like if they idealize me at all, I'm like, okay, I just want to point out that like that language sounds a little bit idealizing. Please don't do that to me or you.
Yeah.
Because when you inevitably discover that I am not this ideal, I don't even want to be in the room when that statue comes crashing down, right? Like that's going to be really bad for both of us.
Wow.
So like, just don't do that. Like, let's not do that.
Wow, this is fascinating. So, I mean,
you mentioned the word manifesting very early in this conversation. And I'm a good manifester. You're a good manifester too. Like we're disciplined, we're resolved.
Yes.
We vision board our way into like, we're like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to make this, I'm going to get this many, like I'm less in the realm of romantic and intimate connection. I've manifested, like I've gotten what I wanted. I've gotten who I wanted at times. And it's almost killed me.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Right? So I'm not that interested anymore in the question of what do I want? But I'm really interested in the question of like, what's God's will for my life?
Man, I love this.
And how can I live in alignment with that?
And I love this.
And so I don't even worry about like, will I ever be with someone again? It's not up to me. I don't really care. Like, I trust when God says you'll be notified if that's supposed to happen. Like, great, I don't have to think about it.
Wow. When did you bring God in your life?
Really, I mean, really seriously when I came into 12-step recovery.
Which was
5 years ago, 5.5 years ago.
Is God in 12-step recovery or is it more?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, higher power is.
Higher power.
It's a spiritual program because addiction is a spiritual sickness. And it's a deep spiritual emptiness. And addicts like me are people who have such a profound emptiness that we will use anything or anybody to fill it.
And you don't have God in your life as like this, the faith or the trust or the knowingness of it, then you find everything else to be your God, I guess, or to fill that void.
I've heard addiction referred to as false worship. It's like, I'm going to worship this thing. I'm going to worship this substance. I'm going to worship this person. I'm going to worship money. I'm going to worship success. I'm going to worship food. I'm going to worship cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like there's this line in there's a line in the Bible about false idols, about not worshiping false idols. And it says that people who worship false idols, and they describe them as like, wooden, like kind of wooden creatures with lifeless eyes. It's like what an idol is. Like you worship that and then you become that. You become sort of wooden and lifeless.
Wow.
And I'm not a fundamentalist Bible reader, but I think that's a really accurate description of what addicts become. You become sort of wooden and lifeless. And the God-sized hole is what it's referred to, can only be filled with God.
Wow. Do you feel a lot more peace now with God in your life?
Yeah. I mean, it is my life, and I had this great experience in step 3, which is made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the God of our own understanding. The beautiful, generous thing about that language is the God of your own understanding. It doesn't necessarily mean the God that you were raised with or threatened with. And I had a sponsor who said to me, write down what you're looking for in a God. Like, nobody will ever surrender their life over to a God who is forced upon them. So write down the qualities that a deity would have to have for you to surrender your life completely, happily over to them. And I was like, you get to do that? And she's like, of course you get to do that, because why would a loving God not appear in whatever form you need? Right? Like, of course. And it was such a fun assignment, because I was like, the very first thing was like, my God has to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
My God has to have a sense of humor and think that I'm adorable and funny, and that my failures are adorable and funny. Like, I can't have a judgmental God. I can't have a punishing God. I have to have an incredibly patient God. I have to have a God who doesn't have anywhere better to be than sitting with me in the middle of the night, present and comforting.
Wow.
Like, I need a God who doesn't have office hours. I need a God who doesn't stand on ceremony and need me to prostrate in a certain particular way. I can't have an insecure God. Like, I can't have a God who's like, if you don't like pray to me in this certain way, I'm not going to feel right. Like, I need to have like an abundant God, a generous God, a loving God who knows me and who likes me. There's, I wish I could remember who said this, but somebody said that the true feeling of being one with God is relaxing completely in the presence of somebody who you know is deeply fond of you. And if people had been taught that in childhood, that's what God presence feels like, relaxing completely in the presence of somebody who you know is very fond of you.
Yeah, not being afraid constantly.
Oh my God, instead of what James Joyce called the hangman God, the judge, the executioner, this is like, of course, I created you, I love you. Like, I made you the way you are.
This is fascinating. How many relationships do you feel like you've been in the past, like intimate relationships, whether it be like dating or sexual or?
Oh, like 40.
40, okay.
And like
how many?
45 maybe?
45.
I was trying to remember, because I had to inventory it when I was, it's part of like the sex and love addict recovery.
That's good. So 40, 45 kind of intimate, loving relationships, or sexual relationships.
45 deeply intimate relationships, Lewis.
Yeah. How many? How many of these relationships?
I love myself.
That's good. Yeah. No judgment here. I mean,
no, I don't feel it.
How many of the relationships you've been in had God at the core of the center?
None.